I'm now happy to welcome on stage Mr. Mike Slaw from Amazon. Mike, thank you.
When I normally come to these conferences, I've got a great joke that I usually do to introduce myself. But the problem is I did it last year when I was on this stage. And so I called Megan up and I said, hey, Megan, is it okay if I do the joke again? And she says, well, you know, we do like to have original content, and there's a lot of repeat people here, so probably not. And so, okay. So so I'm really disappointed that I won't get to point out the similarity between my name, Mike Slaw, and coleslaw. And it's extremely tragic that I won't be able to point out that my full name, Michael Slaw, when you say it slowly, becomes my coleslaw. So Megan, message received. I guess I'm just going to have to start out with a joke about the Dallas Cowboys. So what do the Dallas Cowboys and the Dallas weather have in common? They both peak in the 90s. So I know. Guy from Texas just made a joke about the Dallas Cowboys. I fully expect the Texas Rangers to be in the airport when I arrive, put me on trial for blasphemy against Texas football. And when I go on trial, I expect all of you guys to be there with signs that say free coleslaw. So has anybody played the password game? It's a game, if you're familiar with it, which I'm sure most people are. We've probably got it in our feeds and people send it to us. But password game, somebody put together a game that the objective of this game is to just simply create a password. So you go on, you put in your password, and then you get hit with a series of rules that come out. Like, you know, pretty common ones, like your password has to be more than 5 characters. Your password has to have an uppercase, lowercase letter, symbol, all this stuff. And as you start correcting your password to do that, you start getting into a little bit more crazy ones that, you know, the digits in your password have to add up to 25. You have to include a CAPTCHA at some point. You have to include the answer to today's Wordle, which is Gamut, by the way. And if you haven't seen this game, I recommend going out and playing it. There's 30 some odd password rules that are out there, and they get absolutely insane. Better than just playing it, I would recommend actually finding like a YouTube video of somebody else playing it, and it will save you the pain and the heartache of going through this game. But it's kind of funny that, you know, there is somebody out there who created a game that makes fun of all of the things that we in this room have been establishing for the last, I don't know how many years around this and around password complexity and things like that. But what it leads me to believe and, you know, go through is that passwords suck. They get written down, they're hard to remember, and they get reused. So the first password came out in like 1961. And consequently, the first password breach happened like later that year. So we've been using passwords for about 60 years. And what other piece of technology have we been using for 60 years that are out there? The average person, it said that they have about 100 different passwords. And when I read that, I kind of stepped in and corrected that, and I said, no, the average person has about 3 passwords that get used over 100 different services. So we've spent the last 60 years teaching people how to choose passwords that are harder and harder and harder to remember, harder and harder to use. And really, so I started going through and looking and researching password lists. And I went to Google Books, and I wanted to find the first mention of password lists. So I searched all their archive, and really the first reference I found was in 1995. William G. Hill in the Computer Privacy Report said that the only possible future security implementation that will work will be passwordless technology. That was in 1995. That's older than my kids. And it's been about 30 years where we've been talking about this, and we really haven't got to that point yet. So, what is passwordless? We've been talking about it for a long time. And is it biometrics? Is it something you do on your phone? Is it one-time passcodes? Yes, it's all of those. For the purpose of this talk and this conference, I realize where I'm at. I'm going to be referring to passwordless as passkeys, because passkeys, in all the years we've been talking about passwordless, and all the years I've been working in identity, passkeys are the most viable option that we have to truly go passwordless. You're going to hear a lot about adoption and utilization and companies that are implementing those. We really are getting behind this passkey wave. So when we talk about passwordless, we're going to be really talking about that. So I have an idea for a game. So if we go back to the password game, why don't we make it the passwordless game? Right? So you start off with a password, and then you say, oh, wait, no, don't need that. And you're going to come in, we're going to put a button there, say create a passkey instead. User's going to click that, and they win. Right? So I'm good at identity and authentication. I kind of suck at game design, so if anybody wants to take this concept, run with it. But really, what are we talking about here when we're going to passwordless? So, I really want to talk a little bit about this guy. This guy discovered 2 simple rules for passwordless authentication, and guess what? Passwords hate him. All right, so now that I got you to kind of click on my clickbait here, let's talk about this. So 2 simple rules for passwordless authentication. Seems pretty easy, right? What's rule number 1? Well, rule number 1, don't be a jerk. So when we talk about not being a jerk with passwordless authentication, we're really talking about creating a passwordless experience that has the customer experience in mind. Don't be a jerk to your users by making them jump through a lot of hoops in order to take advantage of passwordless. So to start, you can use the passkey design patterns that are out on the FIDO Alliance website. And now Andrew just announced passkeyscentral.org. These are resources that you can do that have done the research around passwordless in certain experiences throughout your website. So sign in with passkey is one, adding a passkey is another one. So there's about 14 or so of these design patterns that are out there where a lot of the work has been done for you, and it kind of explains how you can go about implementing a passwordless mechanism. You can also allow cross-device sign-in, and we know that passkeys are on your device, but passkeys and passwordless can kind of break out of that ecosystem. You can start using them in other forms and other channels going through there, so you should really take advantage of that. And thirdly, we're talking about auto-filling passkeys. So if somebody has a passkey to your service, and they come to sign in, you can detect that. You can know that they have a passkey. And 96% success rate, last I heard. So there's a 96% chance that user is going to be successful. So why not just help them right down that road towards their sign-in with a passkey? All right, so that's rule number 1. Don't be a jerk. What's rule number 2, Mike? Well, rule number 2, don't be stupid. So what does don't be stupid mean? That is leveraging the security features of passwordless in order to better protect your customers and your users. So I know a lot of us in our passwordless journey, we treat passkeys as a password equivalent. We let people still have a password, but we also let them add a passkey to their accounts. And then they can kind of choose which one they want to use. And to be clear, that's perfectly fine as you're starting out, as you're looking to drive adoption on there. You do get some benefits from a security perspective in doing that, but you really won't fully protect your user from those password attacks as long as there's a password still on that account. So eventually you're going to be looking for ways that you can actually eliminate that password and go full passwordless. I understand that's not going to happen overnight. That's not going to happen without a little bit of help and adoption and education and everything like that. But eventually that should be your end goal. It's not just, hey, we're going to add passkeys and we're just going to throw it on the heap of ways you can log in. Your objective for passwordless should be, I'm going to get passkeys in place, and then eventually I'm going to remove the password and fully bring that protection to your users. Eliminate those attack vectors of that passwords bring. You also need to consider things like device-bound and synced passkeys. I know there's a debate going back and forth. Which is better? Is it device-bound or is it a synced passkey? And really the answer to that is it depends. Depends on your use case. Depends on the risk that you're going through. For a consumer use case, for a small, scrappy, upstart e-commerce site like Amazon, passkeys, a synced passkey should be okay for you. If you're looking for a more high security situation, maybe not. And then you get in there and you start looking, and I get this question a lot, well, are passkeys considered to be MFA? And as I think about that, I think we need the concept of MFA and factors and something I have and something I know, that is not aging well as we move into new and different ways to authenticate. Our new and different ways to authenticate don't nicely fit within those buckets that we defined, 20 some odd years ago. So what I will say is passkeys as MFA is the same thing as device-bound versus synced, is it depends. It depends on your use case. It depends on your risk. One thing that you should absolutely do is whatever level of security that you've achieved to add a passkey to an account, the transactions that you allow with that passkey should be equivalent. What you don't want to do is make it really easy to add a passkey and then use that passkey for really, really sensitive transactions, because then bad actors can always get in, compromise the account, add a passkey, and they've got full access to that. So it's going to depend on your risk assessment and looking through and trying to determine what's the appropriate risk that we're dealing with here. One other thing that I don't have on this list is about data. Using data, let data drive the way they go. We have a saying at Amazon that says, when the data and the anecdotes don't align, the anecdotes are usually right. So if you're hearing stories from your customers, they're usually right. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't use data. It just means your data might be wrong, and you might be looking at the wrong data. And then you can adjust that so that your data and your anecdotes match. And a little illustration of this, I'll tell you a story. When I was a kid, I have a younger sister. And one day we were sitting around the house, and I don't know how it came up, but it found out that she mentioned to me and my older brother that she really likes raisins, but she hates grapes. And most of us are thinking, well, that's weird, because that's all a raisin is just a dried up grape. And so we tried to explain this to her. We said, hey, did you know that they're really kind of the same thing? And she didn't believe us. And so, we walked away from that conversation, and then we went out. I walked out on my front porch, and what did I see? On the corner of the front porch, I saw just a little grape that was sitting on the corner of the porch. And so I was thinking, I was like, wait, she's trying to make a raisin. So what did I do? Being the nice big brother, I went in and I told her, I said, no, it's an industrial process. No, I didn't do that. What did I do? I went into the kitchen, grabbed a box of raisins, ran out, took her grape, and replaced it with a raisin. And then she came out, saw a raisin, got really excited, and then 10 minutes later, there's 2 grapes there. So I put 2 raisins down. Then there was 3 grapes, and then I put 3 raisins down. I don't know how many raisins she made that day. It was at least a box of raisins. But the reason I bring that up is to kind of say, we oftentimes will rely on our own experiences in order to extrapolate that out to our customer base. Rather than using the data that comes in, we will say, well, this is what I like, this is how I do it, so therefore it must work everywhere else. Like my sister who said, hey, I made a grape because that's what my brain and my eyes told me, rather than understanding the other indicators that were about. And so that's it. That's what it is with data. Use data, but when data and anecdotes don't match, then go back and adjust your data until they do, and then monitor that data. So, in conclusion, we need to break the paradigm of passwords. Like, it's time. They're 60 years old. We've been talking about passwordless for 30 years. The people who can make this happen are sitting here in this room. So I will tell you, it's time to make a passwordless future in there. So, thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.